Namaste, Dhanyavad Pranam. By the grace of Vaya. Canto 1, Creation, Chapter 12, Text 22. Mrigendra eva vikranto, nishevyo himabhaniva, titikshor vasudeva so, sahishnuhu pitraviva. This child will be as strong as a lion and as worthy a shelter as the Himalaya mountains. He will be forbearing like the earth and as tolerant as his parents. Purport. One is compared to the lion when one is very strong in chasing an enemy. One should be a lamb at home and a lion in the chase. The lion never fails in the chase of an animal. Similarly, the head of the state should never fail in chasing an enemy. The Himalaya mountains are famous for all richness. There are innumerable caves to live in, numberless trees of good fruits to eat, and good springs to drink water from, and profuse drugs and minerals to cure diseases. Any man who is not materially prosperous can take shelter of these great mountains, and he will be provided with everything required. Both the materialist and the spiritualist can take advantage of the great shelter of the Himalayas. On the surface of the earth there are so many disturbances caused by the inhabitants. In the modern age, the people have begun to detonate atomic weapons on the surface of the earth. And still the earth is forbearing to the inhabitants, like a mother who excuses a little child. Parents are always tolerant to children for all sorts of mischievous acts. An ideal king may be possessed of all these good qualities, and the child Parīkṣit is foretold to have all these qualities in perfection. Text 23. Pitamaha samhasamye prashade giri sopama ashraya sarva bhutanam yatha devo ramashraya. This child will be like his grandfather Yudhisthira or Brahma in equanimity of mind. He will be munificent like the lord of the Kailash hill, Shiva, and he will be the resort of everyone like the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, who is even the shelter of the goddess of fortune. Purport. Mental equanimity refers to both Maharaj Yudhisthira and to Brahma, the grandfather of all living beings. According to Sridhar Swami, the grandfather referred to is Brahma, but according to Vishwanath Chakravarti, the grandfather is Maharaj Yudhisthira himself. But in both cases, the comparison is equally good because both of them are recognized representatives of the Supreme Lord, and thus both of them have to maintain mental equanimity, being engaged in welfare work for the living being. Any responsible executive agent at the top of administration has to tolerate different types of onslaughts from every person for whom he works. Brahmaji was criticized even by the gopis, the highest perfectional devotees of the Lord. The gopis were dissatisfied with the work of Brahma because Lord Brahma, as a creator of this particular universe, created eyelids, which obstructed their seeing Lord Krishna. They could not tolerate a moment's blinking of the eyes, for it kept them from seeing their beloved Lord Krishna. So what to speak of others who are naturally very critical of every action of a responsible man? Similarly, Maharaj Yudhisthira had to cross over many difficult situations created by his enemies, and he proved to be the most perfect maintainer of mental equanimity in all critical circumstances. Therefore, the example of both grandfathers for maintaining equanimity of mind is quite fitting. Lord Shiva is celebrated demigod who awards gifts to beggars. His name, therefore, is Ashutosa, or one who is pleased very easily. He is also called the Bhutanatha, or the Lord of the common folk, who are mainly attached to him because of his munificent gifts, even without consideration of the after effects. Ravana was very attached to Lord Shiva, and by easily pleasing him, Ravana became so powerful that he wanted to challenge the authority of Lord Ram. Of course, Ravana was never helped by Lord Shiva when he fought with Ram, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Lord of Lord Shiva. To Vrikashura, Lord Shiva awarded a benediction which was not only awkward but also disturbing. Vrikashura became empowered by the grace of Lord Shiva to vanish anyone's head simply by touching it. Although this was awarded by Lord Shiva, the cunning fellow wanted to make an experiment of the power by touching the head of Lord Shiva. Thus the Lord had to take shelter of Vishnu to save himself from trouble. And the Lord Vishnu, by his illusory potency, asked Vrikashura to make an experiment with his own head. The fellow did it and finished himself. So the world was saved from all sorts of trouble by such a cunning beggar of the demigods. The excellent point is that Lord Shiva never denies anyone sort of gift. He is therefore the most generous, although sometimes some kind of mistake is made. Rama means goddess of fortune, and her shelter is Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is the maintainer of all living beings. There are innumerable living beings, not only on the surface of this planet, but also in all other hundreds of thousands of planets. All of them are provided with all necessities of life for the progressive march towards the end of self-realization. But on the path of sense gratification, they are put into difficulty by the agency of Maya, the illusory energy, and so travel the path of false plan of economic development. Such economic development is never successful because it is illusory. These men are always after the mercy of the illusory goddess of fortune, but they do not know that the goddess of fortune can live only under the protection of Vishnu. Without Vishnu, the goddess of fortune is an illusion. We should therefore seek the protection of Vishnu instead of directly seeking the protection of the goddess of fortune. Only Vishnu and the devotees of Vishnu can give protection to all, and because Maharaj Parīkṣit was himself protected by Vishnu, it was quite possible for him to give complete protection to all who wanted to live under his rule. Text 24. Sarva sadguna mahatmye Isha Krishnam Anuvrata Ranti Deva Ivodharo Yayatir Eva Dharmika. This child will be almost as good as Lord Sri Krishna by following in his footsteps. In magnanimity he will become as great as King Rantideva, and in religion he will be like Maharaj Yayati. The last instruction of this is the purport now. The last instruction of Lord Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad-gītā is that one should give up everything and should follow in the footsteps of the Lord alone. Less intelligent persons do not agree to this great instruction of the Lord, as ill luck would have it, but one who was actually intelligent catches up this sublime instruction and is immensely benefited. Foolish people do not know that association is the cause of acquiring qualities. Association with fire makes an object hot, even in the material sense. Therefore, association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead makes one qualified like the Lord. As we have discussed previously, one can achieve 78% of the godly qualities by the Lord's intimate association. To follow the instructions of the Lord is to associate with the Lord. The Lord is not a material object whose presence one has to feel for such association. The Lord is present everywhere and at all times. It is quite possible to have his association simply by following his instruction, because the Lord and his instruction and the Lord and his name, fame, attributes, and paraphernalia are all identical with him, being absolute knowledge. Maharaj Parīkṣit associated with the Lord even from the womb of his mother up to the last day of his valuable life, and thus he acquired all the essential good qualities of the Lord in all perfection. Rantidev, an ancient king prior to the Mahabharata period, referred to by Narada Muni while instructing Sanjaya, as mentioned in Mahabharata, Drona Parva 67. He was a great king, liberal for hospitality and distribution of foodstuff. Even Lord Sri Krishna praised his acts of charity and hospitality. He was blessed by the great Vasistha Muni for supplying him cold water, and thus he achieved the heavenly planet. He used to supply fruits, roots, and leaves to the rishis, and thus he was blessed by them with the fulfillment of his desires. Although a Kshatriya by birth, he never ate flesh in his life. He was especially hospitable to Vasistha Muni, and by his blessings only he attained the higher planetary residence. He is one of those pious kings whose names are remembered in the morning and evening. Yayati, the great emperor of the world and the original forefather of all great nations of the world who belong to the Aryan and Indo-European stock. He is the son of Maharaj Nahusa, and he became the emperor of the world due to his elder brothers becoming a great liberated saintly mystic. He ruled over the world for several thousands of years and performed many sacrifices and pious activities recorded in history, although his early youth was very lustful and full of romantic stories. He fell in love with Devayani, the most beloved daughter of Shukracharya. Devayani wished to marry him, but at first he refused to accept her because of being a daughter of a Brahmana. According to Shastras, a Brahman could marry daughter of a Brahmana. A Brahmana could marry the daughter of a Brahmana. They were very much cautious about Varna Shankar population in the world. Sukracharya amended this law of forbidden marriage and induced Emperor Yayati to accept Devayani. Devayani had a girlfriend named Sharmista, who also fell in love with the emperor and thus went with her friend Devayani. Shukracharya forbade Emperor Yayati to call Sharmista into his bedroom, but Yayati could not strictly follow this instruction. He secretly married Sharmista also and begot sons by her. When this was known by Devayani, she went to her father and lodged a complaint. Yayati was much attached to Devayani, and when he went to his father-in-law's place to call her, Shukracharya was angry with him and cursed him to become impotent. Yayati begged his father-in-law to withdraw his curse, but the sage asked Yayati to ask youthfulness from his sons, and let them become old as the condition of becoming impotent. He had 5 sons, 2 from Devayani and 3 from Sharmista. From his 5 sons, namely 1 Yadu, 2 Turvasu, 3 Druya, 4 Anu, 5 Puru, 5 famous dynasties, namely 1 the Yadu dynasty, 2 the Yavana, Turk dynasty, 3 the Bhoja dynasty, 4 the Mlecha dynasty, Greek, and 5 the Paurava dynasty, all emanated to spread all over the world. He reached the heavenly planets by dint of his pious acts, but he fell down from there because of his self-advertisement in criticizing other great souls. After his fall, his daughter and grandson bestowed upon him their accumulated virtues, and by the help of his grandson and friend Sibi, he was again promoted to the heavenly kingdom, becoming one of the assembly members of Yamaraj, with whom he is staying as a devotee. He performed more than 1,000 different sacrifices, gave in charity very liberally, and was a very influential king. His majestic power was felt all over the world. His youngest son agreed to award him his youthfulness when he was troubled with lustful desires, even for 1,000 years. Finally, he became detached from worldly life and returned the youthfulness again to his son Puru. He wanted to hand over the kingdom to Puru, but his noblemen and the subjects did not agree. But when he explained to his subjects the greatness of Puru, they agreed to accept Puru as the king, and thus Emperor Yayati retired from family life and left home for the forest. Thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue from text 25 on Monday, hopefully. Jai Om Vishnupad, Srila Bhakti Niskam Shanta Maharaj ki jai. Jai Srila Bhakti Vigyan Muni Maharaj ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Shripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila Bhakti Nirmala Charya Maharaj ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Srila Bhakti Rakshak Shiradev Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur ki jai. All glories to our Rupanuga Guru Varga ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees ki jai. All glories to the worldwide devotees ki jai. Bhakti Vrinda ki jai. All glories to Navadvip Dham ki jai. All glories to Mayapur Dham ki jai. Nishangapali Dham ki jai. Ekachakra Dham ki jai. Jai Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Baladev Subhadra Jagannath Ju ki jai. Jai Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham ki jai. Govardhan Puja ki jai. Shamkund Radhakund ki jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi ki jai. Nitai Gora Hari 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 Bol.